Yeah. 18 when he was there. I met him when he was 17 and we started going out when he was 18. Handsome chap. He's been in business as an office supplies person since 1988. We had our daughter in 89, so it wasn't a lifestyle choice, it was a necessity. He had to keep the business going. Swiftly followed by our other daughter, Nicola, 2 years later. What do I say about Alan? He's a bit of a deep thinker. He has lots of opinions. He is after everyone having a lovely life. He really is, and our friends will say that as well. He's not happy unless they're happy. He needs to help them to get the optimum for their family, for their lives, and he will go to the nth degree to make that happen. We were visited last Saturday by my ex-brother-in-law. My sister divorced him probably 20 years ago, but he is still a friend of ours, and Alan looks after him. And he's been through some tough times, but Alan has always looked after him, and he's always been peripheral to our family. So he's a very kind soul, I think, and I'd like you to welcome him now to share his philosophy on why he does what he does.
Okay, good afternoon everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'll tell you what, I'm really excited about what I'm going to say today. I'm brimming with excitement. I really can't wait to share everything with you that I'm going to share with you. But before I start, I just want to ask you two questions, okay? And I don't want you to shout out the answers. I don't want to even know whether you know the answers to the questions or not at this stage, okay? I'm going to ask you two questions and I want you just to bear those in mind whilst I'm talking. One is a really easy question and one is a really, really tough question, all right? The first question I'm going to ask you is, West Ham United football ground is moving to Stratford, as everybody knows. But the old ground, what is the nearest tube station to West Ham United football? No, I said don't shout it out. I don't What's the nearest tube station to West Ham United football ground? Okay, that's the first question. And the other question is, what is the meaning of life? I said one was easy, one was hard, and I'm not gonna shift from that position. But just think about those two questions, all right? What's the nearest ground to West Ham football tube station? It's on the district line, by the way. And what is the meaning of life? Okay, there's a book by Simon Sinek that says start with the why. I don't know if you've read it or not, but it's a very interesting book. So when you start anything in life, you need to know why you're doing something. You need to know what drives you, what gets you out of bed in the morning. And if you run a business, don't tell me it's to make a profit, because that's a given, all right? So what is your actual why? So this is my why. That's my why. Jill stole a lot of my thunder, I'm afraid. But this woman is the most important thing in my life. We got married 32 years ago, and it's the best decision I ever made. My best decision by a mile. And the birth of my eldest daughter on the right and the birth of my youngest daughter on the left was also fabulous moments in my life. And that's why I do what I do. And I want to really help other people to understand what their why is, because it's very important. Okay, this is just a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm just going to give you a brief introduction of where I'm from, what I do. You might have guessed it might be near West Ham football ground, but you know, I'll let you decide that. Then we're going to talk about my early career, how I got into office supplies, Brown and Tiny office supplies, how I changed that last year because I'm passionate about helping schools and the education system, which is in a dire strait at the moment in this country. And then I want to get on to what I'm really passionate about, is my own theory called the bubble paradigm, and to tell you a bit about my book, which is called All About You, Finding True Happiness. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, or what I'm going to be talking about today. And there will be a little exercise for you to do later. There will be a little exercise for you. Hi, Beja, come in.
Another naughty chair. He's going to make the door. Oh, well done. He's not doing it. I thought the door was going to shut.
Okay, and finally I want to talk about my book, All About You, Finding True Happiness. I'll probably need about 3 hours to get through all of this, but hey-ho, we'll have a good try. Okay, I was born in the East End of London on the 5th of December 1959.
No, can't believe
Thank you. So technically I was a 50s baby, but that was for 30 days. And for those of you who are really good at maths, that makes me 56. Those that are really bad at maths, it makes me 46. All right. Okay, I was born to parents Ron and Sheila in the East End of London, as I say, and I was born into a really, really happy, loving environment. Unfortunately, my parents didn't have a lot of ambition. My dad worked at the docks as a clerical assistant. My mum worked in a school as a welfare assistant. So I didn't actually get a lot of ambition thrust upon me in my early years. One turning point though, and I read recently an article, I don't know if anyone read this, about a table tennis player who became a champion, and he said the reason I became a champion is where I was born. Because I was born there, I went to that school and I met this coach who taught me table tennis. If I was born in that street, then I wouldn't have met him and I wouldn't have been an excellent table tennis player. Same applies to me. I lived in this road that meant I went to Brampton School in East Ham. Okay? One road along, I would have gone to Central Park School. Why is that important? Well, they called Brampton School Clark's College, okay? Because they excelled at academic ability. They excelled at sport, and by the way, I represented the school in running, rounders and football, and I was the Newham long jump champion at the age of 10. So it really resonated with me. Brampton School really resonated with me. It made me a rounded individual, I believe. And at the end of my junior schooling career, if you like, I was awarded the coveted Mayflower Award. There was one award for a boy, one award for a girl, and it was for the most all-rounded person in the school. And I won that. So that's really good. Round of applause for that. Okay, so I got my first business opportunity when I was 10 years old. My dad used to take my brother and I over to Wanstead Flats and collect conkers on the floor. We collected them all up, we took them home, we bagged them up, and we used to go to school and sell them for 5 for a penny. Okay, we didn't make a fortune, but hey ho, you know, that was my first business. But then I had a competitor who was selling 10 for a penny. Damn it, what do you do about that? Do you sell 12 for a penny and just cut your losses? No, me and my brother went home, we got a skewer, we skewed the conkers, we put string in it, we tied the knot so they're all ready to play, and we sold them for a penny each. How brilliant is that?
That is brilliant.
It's a brilliant idea. I got my first Saturday job in Queen's Road Market when I was about 11 years old. So I wanted to buy a moped when I was 16. I was sure I wanted a moped when I was 16. It was £159.99, a Yamaha FS1E, a yellow one. I wanted to buy that when I was on my 16th birthday. So I got this Saturday job. And the people I worked for were good Jewish East End family who ran their hardware business, and they taught me a lot about business. I really learned a lot from those people. You know, I didn't know it at the time, but I stuck with them for a very long time on a very low minimum wage, and it wasn't minimum. But I stuck with them, and I learned a lot. But my parents said, get a proper job. You don't want to be working down a market, you need a proper job. So I went for one interview with the Electricity Board, I went for one interview with Newham Council, and I got the job offer on both, but Newham Council offered to give me day release, so I continued with my studies and eventually got a degree at the expense of Newham Council. At this stage, ladies and gentlemen, I will answer the tough question, which was, what is the nearest tube station to West Ham United football ground? That was a tough one, all right? Now, I'll give you a clue. So the two people that know, don't shout it out. But the two Allans, Alan Gold and Alan Sullivan, now call it the bowling ground. Yeah? Mm. What was the ground called before it was the bowling ground?
Upton Park.
What's the nearest tube station?
Upton Park.
Yeah.
So the nearest tube station is Upton Park. And nearest tube station is Upton Park, and that's where I got my first Saturday job in H&J stores down Queens Road Market. So that's a bit about where I'm coming from, where I grew up, and that's where we are at the moment. Okay, so the next bit of the presentation, I'll just move on to my early career. As I said, my parents wanted me to get a proper job, so I worked at Newham Council. They paid for me to get the degree. But it was like a square peg in a round hole. I wasn't feeling right there. I was very successful. I worked in the housing department. I was the youngest housing officer at 19. I was the youngest senior district housing officer at 23. Looking after 1,000 properties in the East End of London. Not the job most people would think a 23-year-old being in charge of 5 staff as well would want. Or I just didn't feel right. It wasn't my passion. I wasn't getting up in the morning thinking, oh great, I'm going to work for the council and I'm going to deal with all these rent arrears and I'm going to deal with all these tenant disputes and I'm going to deal with this. It just wasn't right. It wasn't right. So in 1988, Brown and Tiny Office Supplies was born. We had an idea. Jill and I had an idea. We had a concept. We had Margaret Thatcher telling us all to start our own businesses. We had British Telecom being deregulated. So we had an idea. We thought, let's start a business where we sell office supplies to British Telecom ex-customers, because it's now an open market. There was no business gurus at the time. There were no business coaches. So me and Jill sat down and we said, what does the customer want? And this was before anything like that was even thought of. What does the customer want? Well, they want good service, don't they? British Telecom take a week to deliver. If we deliver in 2 days or a day, then we're going to be up there. We're going to give them a good product. That goes without saying. It's got to be equal to the product that British Telecom was supplying. And we want to give it slightly cheaper to give an edge. Why should people buy from us? A new company just started out. So we started in 1988. I gave up my job with the council after they paid for me to get qualified. How bad is that? I don't know. But we started the Brown and Tiny Office Supplies in 1988, and it just grew and grew and grew with success. We worked really, really hard. We were committed to what we were doing. We had all the right ingredients there, and it was very, very successful. In 1989, as Jill's already said, our first daughter was born. That means I had to work a bit harder, because Jill, who was working in the business, then had to become a mum and give me support in the business. But it worked. It worked magnificently. I started to employ staff. We started to expand our product range, and things just got better and better. However, in 1992, of course, we had our second daughter. That goes without saying. She was absolutely the apple of my eye, and as is the first one, I can't single one out. They're both equally as good as. Let's move on. Let's move on. So, about a year and a half ago, we're moving on to number 4 now, which is the school people. About a year and a half ago, we looked at our business very seriously because it was becoming just a job. All right? I think when you're in business, you need to have an edge. You need to have something that's motivating you. You need to have something that inspires you. And I was getting to a stage after 25 years where it was a bit same old, same old, same old. You know the feeling? So Jill, by then, was our business coach. I get very good rates. And we sat down and we said, right, what should we do? What should we do? Do you want to sell it? Do you want to diversify? What do you want to do? So we got a big board up, we wrote all the pros and cons of every option. And at about the same time, one of our competitors phoned up and said, I want to buy your company. And we said, but it's not for sale. He said, well, come and have a little chat. So we went down and had a little chat. Cut a long story short, we divided our customer base up into commercial and schools. Schools is what Chris and I, who's my sales manager, Chris and I are passionate about schools. We're passionate about the state of the schools at the moment that are being run by accountants and business managers, and the academies. It's working in some areas but not in others. We wanted to be a procurement company for schools, offering goods and services that perhaps they didn't traditionally buy from an office supplies company. So we wanted joint ventures. We wanted people to come into the fold and to work with us and to really give schools value for money, someone they can trust, etc., etc. So we decided we came to a deal with the company that wanted to buy us, so they bought our commercial side and we continued as the school people on the 1st of July last year. I have to say it's going really good, really well. You know, there's a lot of work to do. We're doing joint ventures. We've got one with Jerry, as Julie alluded to earlier, which has gone successfully and it's gone really, really well. And we're looking for more joint ventures on that area of the business. So we now move on to my bubble paradigm, which is okay. We now answer the easy question. What is the meaning of life?
42.
Just the one.
There was 3 of them.
42. Okay. Anyone got any suggestions? What is the meaning of life?
Joy, freedom and expansion.
Very close. Very, very close. Very close.
Dying well.
Well, that's a systemic win, isn't it? I said, this for me is the easy question. The easy question is, what is the meaning of life? The meaning of life is true happiness. That's the meaning of life. The real question is, how do I find true happiness? And that's what my Babel paradigm is all about. It's about transformation. It's about people being relieved of stress, of worry, of anxiety, of things that affect their everyday life, affects their decision-making process, because they're living in depression, they're living looking down at the floor, they're not embracing life. So that's what the Babel paradigm is all about. So I'll explain it in a picture, but you've got to think of it as 3D. But I don't want you to think about it as 3D as far as the picture's concerned, because there's something very important in the picture I'm going to draw in a minute, which you can't express as a 3D image. Okay, so what I want you to think about is a bubble. It's not bad, is it? Well, I think, so this is the bubble, okay? So think of that as a 3D bubble, and that is your life. Your whole life is a bubble, okay? If that bursts, you die, all right? So you're still alive while the bubble's intact. Has everyone got that image in their mind? Okay, now there's 3 elements within inside that bubble, which are 3 other small bubbles. Okay, first bubble inside the big one is what I call your work life. Now I'd just like to say at this point that the bubble paradigm does not take into account age, sex, religion, colour, old, young. The bubble paradigm is applicable to every single person that's got a pulse and can talk. Alright? So when I talk about your work life, I'm talking about, yes, employee payment, being self-employed, etc. But for older people, you could equate it to them, for example, having a voluntary job in the local charity shop, say for example. Just gets them out of the house. It's something to keep their mind active, it's something to engage with and ensure that you don't become a sit-at-home vegetable. For a child, obviously, it means going to school and learning and being educated. So that's the work life, okay? Now the second element of my bubble theory, which also is a bubble within the bubble, is your family life. Now, as I've said earlier, family is very important to me. It's why I exist, it's why I get up in the morning, it's why I do what I do. But I think everybody just dismisses their family as something that's there, something that is just in the background. I say engage with your family, whether it be your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your relatives, your uncles, your aunts, your cousins. Engage with them. Just have a relationship with them. They're part of you. Your family is part of you. Now, if these bubbles get too big, you can imagine they start squeezing the other one out. So if your work life is your be-all and the end-all, all right, you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, you go to the office, you don't get back till midnight, and your family suffer because you don't put the kids to bed, you don't read them a story, or your family life is important to the exclusion of your work life, then these can expand and push the other one towards the edge. Now, the last bubble, which is the thing that most people leave out of this sort of life-work balance, which makes my bubble theory quite unique, is a third bubble, which is quite appropriate for this group, because I call that your be time or your me time. It's where you just be, you just relax, you just be, It can be yoga, it can be meditation, it can be anything that you want, but that is a bubble within your life. Now, where do you find happiness? Happiness is right there. When you've got all those three things in balance, they're all in the same paradigm, they're all in the same bubble as your life, but one isn't expanding to the exclusion of another. You see, I'll give you an example of the be time and the me time. If you're a golfer, for example, and you're so obsessed with golf, you play it night and day, and that bubble gets bigger and bigger and bigger. First of all, your family life will suffer because your husband or your wife might go to you, "You're playing golf all the time, for goodness sake, you've got to cut down a bit." And you might say, "No, I'm going to play golf." Well, that bubble will get huge, that will get smaller, it might affect your work life. You know, your employer, if you're employed, might say, "You're taking too much time off." "But I like my golf." "Well, I don't care, you need to come to work a bit more often, so that's what we pay you for." So do you get the theory? Do you get the theory in principle that you've got to have all these three things equal in your life? Now, I'm probably the worst example of my theory, because up to recently, Beiju, no letters, is my work life and my family life were probably bigger than my me time or my be time. So,
Sorry, I've heard this before, it's okay, I'm just going to get some back in a row. Carry on.
Support.
You need to spend more time with the family.
Yeah, so this is
You need
probably,
another bubble then, my friend.
this is probably a bad example for me, because I was concentrating on my work life and my family life to the exclusion of my me time or my be time. So I made a conscious effort to increase this bubble, and you can do that. That's allowed. That's allowed. If your work life is the big thing in your life, and you're spending too much time at work, you can choose to reduce that. You can choose to reduce your work life and concentrate on the other bubble. So what I did personally is I started to run. I now run 5k every other day. I have a motorcycle. I go out on my motorbike just to be myself. I play racquetball, where it's just my time. It's not with the family. It's nothing to do with work. So my me time or my be time is getting bigger. It's not quite there yet, but it is getting bigger. But this is where you find happiness. But the theory doesn't stop there, all right? The theory doesn't stop there, because there's all these things attacking your bubble. Because don't you think we live in a world where everything is at a fast pace? Mm-hmm. Don't you think we live in a world where everyone wants an answer today? They can't wait till tomorrow, and they send you an email, and then they send you a text. "Did you get my email?" About 10 minutes later. Have you ever been in that scenario? when I was growing up, we had a telephone, and that was it. There was nothing else, and you could only use that after 6 o'clock because it was cheap rates after 6 o'clock. But we live in a world now that's so fast. It's so fractious. Everyone wants your time. Everyone's making demands on you. Everyone wants you to drop what you're doing and deal with them. Now this leads to stress. It leads to anxiety. It leads to pressure being put on the outside of your bubble. Because, believe me, if you haven't got that in line and you haven't got that aligned, then these things can attack the bubble and actually burst the bubble, even if you've got these aligned. So what we're going to do is expand the theory to put an insulation around the bubble. So first of all, you've sorted out your own life. You've got your bubbles intact, you've got them in the right size so that you're living in harmony and you've found happiness in the middle. But we're going to put an insulation around the bubble so that even if they're working in harmony, they're not attacking the outside because there are threats from... Sorry, they're not attacking from the inside because there are threats from the outside. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Okay. So what the book is about, it's all about you, is what I call my 6 rules of life. Now some people could call it your commitments, what you commit to, and how you decide to lead your life. Others may say, well, you know, you're setting that as your bar, but it doesn't matter if you don't reach that bar. You know, a high jumper runs up to that bar, they're trying to jump 7 feet, the bar's set at 7 feet, they jump up, they knock it over, it goes bang. They don't go, oh well, I didn't do it, I'll go home now. They reset it at 7 feet, and they try again, and it bangs, and they reset it, and they will continue to do that until they get to where they want to be. So I want you to bear that in context when I tell you what my 6 rules of life are. But before we do that, I've just got a little exercise for you. Because setting the 6 rules of life, I'll give you a little clue. It's all about your mindset. It's all about getting that mindset right. And it's all about how you react to situations, how you react to people when they annoy you, when they upset you, when they don't say the things you want them to say. So I've just got a little exercise here for you to do. If you haven't got a pen, I've got pens as well. Some very nice pens, look, nice pens.
Pink ones?
No. So here's a little exercise. Do you want a pen? Yeah. Do you need a pen?
Yeah.
Do you need a pen?
No, I've got one, thank
Do you need a pen?
I want to try with a pen, please.
you. You'll never see it again. That's it, it's gone.
Yeah, it's not coming back.
Thank you very much. Can I have this? Can I pen? I just want you to spend 5 minutes on this. It's not. Cheers, mate. Pens. Anyone in the pen? Just 5 minutes, and just write down your gut reaction to the scenario. Just what you think. In myself.
you want the men to answer the wife ones about the wife and or
No,
everyone
it's anonymous.
reverse it?
It's anonymous.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's anonymous.
Okay.
Yeah. It's anonymous. From the point of view of the person who's being aggrieved.
So we have to pretend we're
Good question.
We're going to do this from two different mindsets.
Yeah, there's two questions. The top question is your gut reaction. The second one is your humour reaction. Because they are very different, which I will do to
But you have to put yourself in the bloke's position as well as the girl's position.
You've got to pretend you like football.
Yeah. Tough, but, you know,
Well,
tough
like everyone,
exercise.
No.
It's a scenario. Has anyone finished or nearly finished? Good. Because I want to crack on if that's all right, because my time is short. I've got a lot more to say.
Sorry to burst your bubble.
Okay, I'm going to move on, but please finish these at home as homework and send them in and I'll mark them for you. Money joke. No, I'm not. Yes, anyway. Okay, we're going to move on to my 6 rules of life, or setting the bar to where you want it to be. And as I said, it doesn't matter if you if you don't quite hit that bar, you can always reset it. All right. So my first rule of life is this, and this is probably the cornerstone of the book. It's probably the one I had the second most difficult chapter to write. So this is the first one. Is live your life in gratitude. All right. It was a very difficult chapter to write because when I was young, my nan owned a caravan down at Clacton-on-Sea, and she used to let us go down there for holiday. And when we got back, she was expecting gratitude. All right, she was expecting gratitude, and I grew up thinking gratitude was when someone does something for you, you've got to say, "Oh, thank you very much. Oh, you're the best person in the world," because that's how she made me feel. All right. Then I realised that gratitude is actually not that at all. Live your life in gratitude. Be grateful for the things people do for you. If someone does something for you, then think about it. Think about it deeply and profoundly. If someone does a good turn for you, don't just say thank you. You know, say thank you, yeah, but then think about how you can help that person. That's what cooperation and collaboration is all about. It's about having gratitude for being here. It's having gratitude for the things people do with you, do for you. Jill and I once gave some money to someone who was, in our eyes, poor. All right, they were struggling. They were struggling with money, so we gave them a sum of money. It doesn't matter how much that was, and we thought we were doing our good deed for the day. We went round their house a couple of weeks later, and they had a tropical fish tank, a little tropical fish in it, but it was brand new. So
It made them feel relaxed.
so
Put food on the table.
Always wanted a fish tank.
We're running the food.
Yeah, maybe.
So then we realised that if you do give something to somebody, don't expect anything in return. Just give it with a good heart, and don't expect anything in return. Because believe me, your karma, your return will come tenfold if you don't expect anything in return. So that's the message for gratitude. Okay. Now the second one is find your authentic self. I can't stress highly enough how I meet people sometimes and you just know it's not the real person you're talking to. Does anyone else get that feeling? They're just going, you know, how are you doing? Yeah, fine, fine. Oh, how's things going? Yeah, fine. And you think, for goodness sake, just tell me, you know, be yourself, be unique in yourself, be comfortable in your own body. That's what I'm trying to say. Be comfortable in your own body enough so that when someone asks you how you are, if you are feeling crap, tell us you're feeling crap, because that's authentic. Alright? I had to make a big decision when I was planning this talk, whether I had loads of notes like this and go through them and go, oh yeah, or whether I just wanted to be authentic in what I'm saying. It was a very tough decision, but I chose to be authentic. I hope it's worked today because what I believe in, I'm passionate about, and I want to help other people. But I would encourage every single person in the room to be authentic. Be truthful with people. It's just the right thing to do. All right? If you lie to someone and they believe you, it's still a lie. If you're truthful with someone, even if it's not what they want to hear, and you have to have discretion when you're doing that, guys. Discretion, when you're telling the truth about someone, how they're behaving, how they're acting, you have to use discretion, but just be truthful because it's good for the soul. It's good for the soul to be truthful with people and just be upfront with people. Don't let things fester. Don't let things eat on you when a simple conversation would resolve that conflict. I'm rushing through these a bit because I've only got about 5 minutes left. Okay. Don't let your inner voice take control. Whoa! This is the real big one, because this is the one that I really want to help people with. Without going into the medical or the technical details, there's a bit in your brain called the, I forgot the name of it, but it doesn't matter. It's your gut reaction. And those things on that sheet that you wrote down, it doesn't matter what your answers are. It's your limbic brain. Your limbic brain works out as your inner voice. So that gives your gut reaction. But your inner voice works on feelings and emotion. Your human voice works on logic and taking account of the scenario and what the outcome's going to be. It's a bit of bad news here, I'm afraid. Your inner voice is 4 times stronger than your human voice. How are we going to cope with that one? There's even more bad news. Your limbic brain takes 1/16 of a second to work out what your response is going to be. And that's what I was trying to highlight with these scenarios. There's no right or wrong answer, but let's just take the first one. Your husband calls you and he says he's going to work late, he hasn't worked late for 2 years. Your inner voice might say, blimey, that's unusual, he never does that. He's not very busy at work at the moment. He must be having an affair. Right, that's your inner voice. Your logical human voice might say, oh well, you know, I trust him, he's obviously not lying to me, he must be working late. When he gets home, I'll have a little word. It doesn't matter about the dinner. You know, we can do that another time. So do you see the difference between your gut reaction and your human reaction? There's a third element to this, which is called the computer within your brain, which works out off of your experiences of life, and it works out your reaction to a certain situation or scenario. Now, both your inner voice and your human voice will both refer to the computer. They will both refer to it. But it's normally the inner voice that comes up with the first reaction. So what little exercise for you. If you're confronted by a situation and you get that that rage come to you, you know, that's your inner voice. That's your inner voice. And it's very interesting talking to you earlier, Debbie, about the eating disorders. Because if you've got an eating disorder and you eat 10 Mars bars, it's your inner voice that's saying, I'm going to eat these Mars bars till I'm full up. Your human voice will say, don't eat 10 Mars bars, you're going to get fat. So, do you see the difference? The choice is yours. It's all about you. It's not about me telling you what to do. It's about you making the decision for yourself. Right? An alcoholic is an alcoholic until they decide that they're not going to drink. They can't stop drinking to please somebody else. They will only get rid of the addiction when they decide for themselves that they're going to not drink anymore. I know that for a fact. My brother died at the age of 50 and he was an alcoholic. And we tried to help him time and time again. But unfortunately, he didn't want help. He was in self-destructive mode. He didn't want help, and tragically, he died at 50. Here's a little tip for you. If you find that rage come to you, that's your inner voice, all right? So here's a little tip. Just breathe in and out 3 times. And then shout out, good spot. You've spotted the fact that your inner voice is taking control of what you want the outcome to be, or what you want to happen. Okay. So if you book in on my masterclass next month, we'll go through all these in a lot more detail. So I'll just finish up with the last 2. The last 2 are not so heavy, all right? The last 2 are the joy you get when you find that space and you live by the first 4. When you live in gratitude and you avoid the inner voice, then you will be awake to what's going on around you. Stop and smell the roses. Have a little bit of me time, have a little bit of be time. It's very important for the soul. It's very important that you take that time out and you appreciate what's going on around you. The world is a beautiful, beautiful place. Yeah, there's a lot of hostility going on, and we spoke a bit about it in Paul's masterclass, but the majority of the world is a beautiful place. Just be awake to this, be aware. Don't you go down the street and you see kids looking on their mobile phones doing this? You know, now the worst case scenario of that is that they won't see a car coming down the road, as unfortunately we've been experienced as my godson died a couple of years ago in a road traffic accident, and his sister was involved in a really major accident as well because she wasn't awake to the situation. It's not criticism, I'm not criticising anything. I'm just saying, be awake to what's going on around you, because the world is a beautiful place. And finally, just embrace a relationship with life. We're on this planet, if we're lucky, 70, 80 years, 90 years maybe. If we're really, really lucky, 100, all right? It's not a long time, it's a real short time. So embrace life, embrace love, embrace cooperation, and find happiness, because that is the meaning of life. As I said, if you want to book onto the masterclass, I will go through these in a lot more detail and a lot more explanation. But for now, I'll just ask if you've got any questions, guys.
When's the book out? When's the book out?
You're doing an hurricane, aren't you? I've written the first 3 chapters. I've written the introduction, the first 3 chapters. I'm on the 4th chapter. There'll probably be about 10. So
Someone else asked when's the book out.
When's the book out, Jill?
Where are we now? July.
July.
I reckon you can do it by January. We'll launch in January.
By the end of the year, I'll do it.
We call it then.
Yeah. November.
Anybody else?
You're looking at me.
Well,
I think that... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask what made you think you wanted to write a book?
I think my life was transformed, and I think that the stuff I've got to share here, the whole world should know about. I think 10% of the population know it anyway, so the book's not aimed at them. 10% of the population, 10% of the population don't want to know. You know, they're just happy with their dreary lives. I think my book is aimed at 80% of the population. I just want to help people, Scott. I just want people to understand that they don't have to live a life of misery. They don't have to live a life of depression. They don't have to live a life of stress. There is a way out. There's a different way. You've just got to embrace it yourself. You've got to choose for yourself to embrace it. And I'm just giving the tools to enable people to do that. But it's the answer to your question, why did I... There's also a lady in our life that I'm writing the book for, but she doesn't she does know it because I've told her, but I'm writing it for her because I know this stuff and this information will transform her life 100 times. 100 times. She just needs something to read, and there's nothing like this out there. There's nothing like this out there that gives a unique paradigm of how to achieve happiness, and then back it up with 6 rules of life. You can make your own rules of life. I'm not saying these are exclusive to that model working, but those 6 rules will give you the insulation which will stop the stress, stop the anxiety, stop the strokes and the heart attacks, which ultimately will kill you.
So, one question, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
When we were just having a little chat, we spoke about, you know, where we are now and what's our purpose in life. So what, unless I'm very wrong, you supplying stationery and this, for me, are 2 quite different things. What one's closer to your heart? 'Cause obviously you're really trying to help schools and things like that, which is really great. But this is really quite transformational for the masses. So do you see yourself perhaps sort of moving more down that line of things eventually?
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
No, okay, yeah, sorry. No, that's good. But
Right,
it's
okay.
really quite interesting, if you don't mind me saying, right? Because we're not going to talk about age. But why do you think you've got to this point in your life to do this now, rather than perhaps before or later? Why now? What's the difference for you?
Oh wow, that's a very good question. I did a course about 2 years ago, which resonated with me. It made me think about my life, what I'm doing. So that, if you like, was the turning point. I carry that with me everywhere. It's a stone. It's called a touchstone. So if I get anxious or anxiety, I touch that stone. Because I used to live my life just working to support my family, right, which is what my dad did. And in the book it explains that a lot of the early years, the first 7 years of your life, a lot of those make you the person you are today. So for example, well not 7 years, but say your early years up to the age of 16. For example, if your parents voted Labour, they're both Labour supporters, the chances are you'll vote Labour in your first general election. You won't use your mind to work out the pros and cons. You're likely to vote Labour. If your parents are into literature, the chances are you would have read all the classics by the time you're 18. Those are just 2 simple examples. So your early years tell you who you are. I was the person that did what my dad did. My dad worked just to provide food on the table, had no ambition. I wanted more to life than that. I wanted more to life than just working, just to put food on the table. And it was really the course that, so that stone for me tells me, I will love myself first, okay, which I never used to do. I used to love my family first. I will love myself first, then I will provide for my family, and I will embrace a relationship with life. That was my commitment. And if I'm anxious, I'm worried, carry that everywhere.
Just make sure you take it out of your pocket before any washing's put on. Just don't go in the washing machine.
It's alright, it'll come out. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah. Because I feel that people reach a point in their life which is transformational for them to do transformational things.
Yeah.
Unless you're born lucky and you already have everything that you need in order to be transformational. People go through a number of life experiences, and like you said, you obviously reached a point where you notice all you're doing is working, and that is just, that doesn't make you happy as such, does it? It just provides money.
So drawing it to a close, thank you, Claudia. I'd also like to say that had it not been for Bee Collaboration, Alan probably wouldn't have gone on that course.
I was going to come on to that actually. I was going to mention the Be Inspired course that I did, but I thought time was short, and obviously
it's
my involvement.
It's a nice way to round it up.
Okay.
Kind of
Be Inspired was very inspirational to going on this other course, if that makes sense. Membership of Be Collaboration has transformed my life as well. I've obviously had Jill around, who is an excellent business coach, life coach, and a good leveller. I mean, I think in my life I was a bit OCD.
I might be a bit OCD.
I was a bit OCD, so that had to change. I had to get calmer. I had to get more real with life, and I think that Be Inspired, Be Collaboration, plus this course I went on, gave me the tools to do it. And now I just want to. I'm passionate about sharing it with everybody else.
Lovely.
Passionate about sharing it with 80% of the population.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank
Can I
you,
keep
Jo.
this pen?
Yes.